the left is the Canon and on the right is the iPhone 10. Now what I was actually looking at was kind of in between these two. The Canon on the left was a little bit brighter than what it actually looked like, and the iPhone 10 was a little bit darker as well as a little bit too contrasty and punched up. So the iPhone 10 tries to do everything with software after you take the JPEG for it to look as good as possible, whereas with the Canon it kind of tries to brighten things up here. But getting close, you can see not too much difference in detail here. Both are pretty excellent shots, and overall I do think that the iPhone is pretty impressive for a smartphone. As you can see, it's pretty much matching up here with the kit lens that you would get with your DSLR. Now better glass would be much better quality here, but this is the kit lens. Now here's a close-up, and we're really going to see a difference here in detail when I get closer. You can even see here that the rocks just look artificial there on the left, which is the iPhone 10, and on the right you can see more detail on the rocks, which definitely look a lot more realistic. Now I'm going to zoom in on these two photos so you can see this text on the screw right there, and you can see, look how much better it is on the right. That is the Canon. And here's a huge difference between iPhones and DSLRs is the finer details. It's still no match for a DSLR on a smartphone. So here is the second example here. On the left is the iPhone 10, on the right is the Canon. Again, a little bit darker on the iPhone, a little bit brighter on the Canon, but how do they do with the finer details with this one? So let's crop in a little bit closer up to the top of the lighthouse, and you can see, which one do you think is better? I think it's pretty obvious which we can see more detail in. You can even see the screws, that it's a flathead screw right there on the arms of the top of the lighthouse. And look at the box, there's a lot of detail in there as well. So here's another image. Now this is closer up, so here is where it's really hard to discern the differences. You know, phones are doing really well when it comes to close-up shots here. But let's zoom in just a little bit on the Chicago Park District text at the bottom of the sign, and you're gonna see that the right does pull in a little bit more detail, which is the Canon once again, whereas the iPhone on this one was actually brighter, but there was a little bit of softness around the letters. So again, the finer details is a win for the DSLR, and again, if you had a better lens, it'd be even better. Now another major factor of using a DSLR is you do have manual modes. You see that M right there, where you can basically tweak the aperture and everything to get the shot you want. So this is an area where phones still are not really beating these kinds of cameras, in that you do have to download an app, and even then you just don't have the same robust controls that you do get on a, you know, a DSLR or a full frame or even a mirrorless camera, to be honest with you. Even a lot of point and shoots give you this control that you don't get on most smartphones. Now LG V30 and LG G6 as well as the Huawei Mate 9 and 10 do give you some good control, but the iPhone's just not one of them. So here is the fifth example. Again, with the iPhone being a little bit darker, the Canon being a little bit brighter, I'm still gonna take the brighter image. This is more pleasing to the eye to me. But what you're gonna see here is I'm gonna zoom in on the top of one of these lamp posts, well actually the first one, and we're gonna see how the detail is. So there's just a very, very slight bit of more detail on the picture on the right for the Canon, but you would say they're both pretty noisy from this distance. So the kit lens on the Canon, not the best in comparison to some glass you could buy for it, and the iPhone did pretty well in comparison on this photo. So here's a macro, the final one, iPhone on the right, Canon on the left. I do think that the iPhone is the more pleasing picture here just because it's a little more punchier. It's just a little bit more eye-grabbing. My eye goes directly to it, and the Canon's a little more realistic, but I would pick the iPhone on this one. So it's pretty close overall, but I do think the Canon has better detail.